Alright, so we've got our black powder rifle lab. I've got the inletting portion set up here. I've got Perusian blue. As per the video, I've coated the high points of the lock mechanism, and I will attempt to fit it. I don't have any help filming this today, so I'm going to try to do this by myself. If I need both hands, I'll have to pause it, but we'll fit it in here as per the directions and try to keep from getting paint all over my wood. But it's definitely gonna need some fitting here. You can see around the edges it's not seating very well. So we'll get it pressed in there as best as we can, and we'll pull it out, and you can see where I'm gonna have to do some trimming there. And some trimming there, it looks like, and some trimming up front. So we'll get to work on that. So I've test fitted the locking mechanism a few times. I've trimmed away where the inletting compound is showing high spots, and as you can see, I've gotten them trimmed up. There was some areas right here that needed to be cleaned up, and a few areas down here that needed to be cleaned up. As you can see, I got the line drawn around the locking mechanism. Not going to take it all the way to the line, just going to go slow and easy and trim some of this away as recommended in the video. Just gonna take off a little bit of shaving at a time and see how we get it to fit. I will be back. Okay, so I've done some inletting here. I've coated the edges of the locking mechanism with some of the inletting compound, and we'll be doing a test fit here, so hopefully try to keep the mess to a minimum, but get that pressed in. And I got my nylon hammer here, and I'll just give it a few taps. Hopefully try it. Alright. And obviously we still need some work, but see, we've still got a few areas we need to clean up here and there, but overall doesn't look too bad. Okay, we've been working with the locking mechanism here, got it to where it sits in here pretty snug. Just recoated the edges with the inletting solution. Let's see how this turned out. Pop that out. And looks pretty good. Maybe a few little areas I'll touch up with some sandpaper, which I have right here. Some grit sandpaper. I'll sand these edges up, and we'll try it one more time. we've fitted our locking mechanism. Gonna do a function tech on the trigger. It's hard to do one-handed, but let's see if I can switch hands. And well, it's working. I'm able to do it with both hands, but it is working. We're going to start prepping the brass work now for getting it prepared to inlet on the stock. So we're going to file down these casting marks as recommended. I have a fine tooth file. We're going to get started on that. Okay, we've been filing on this for a few minutes. Got a lot of the casting marks off. Getting the brass polished up. We'll hit around there a little bit more, but getting it going. I'm going to clean up right there in the corners and then flip it around and do that part. Okay, I've got our piece flipped around here. And let's shine the slide on so you can see those casting marks a little bit better. And we're going to go ahead and get started on this piece. Okay, so we've got our brass cleaned up pretty good here, and we're going to get ready for the inletting process. Alright, we got our stock sitting here. We're going to put it up there and see how much of a rock we have. And surprisingly, there's not a whole lot of rock. There is some gap there, so we will put the inletting paste on and go to work. I will take a pencil and mark my edges and go from there. So as you can see, I've run into a bit of a problem here. I don't know really how much of a problem it is yet. I guess we'll see as time goes on. But when I align the top part of the butt on there, it's the stock isn't really much wider than the brass. I don't know if you can see that part, but down here there's a little bit of a gap, but not much. So this part's going to be interesting. We'll see how it plays out. Alright, so we've got the inletting material on our piece, and we're going to try to fit this onto the wood without making too much of a mess. Okay, here we go. Alright, I'm going to press it on there. I'm going to set the camera down and tap the back with the leather mallet just to kind of get a good imprint on there, but I can only do that with two hands. So alright, so that part imprinted pretty good. This part not so much. That part not so much, but we're going to try to maybe put a little more of this Persian blue on there and see if we can't get a better outline of what we do. I'd hate to start cutting wood and screw something up because I took too much off or didn't take enough off. So alright, so still didn't get much in the way up here as a marking, but got a little bit better there. So what I'm gonna try to do is get a straight edge and just try to line this up the best I can to get it to inlet. And I'll sketch it out with a pencil. Out, kind of got lines drawn there with a straight edge, and I'm going to start chiseling away where I need to. Recommended procedure, if you'll bear with me for a moment, I'll set this in, is to take your straight edge chisel and just kind of press down in the lines here, score it. That'll keep you from gouging too far into the stock here, and do it on all the lines. And of course you'll use the quarter moon one here for the top of your buttstock here. So, moving right along. Okay, so I was trying to follow the procedure outlined in the video, and I was using the chisel to gently try to score a line, and the result was I split off a big chunk. So I've got this clamped down and glued, and I'll have to come back and revisit this tomorrow when the glue's had a chance to set. Because this wood has a propensity to split, it seems, because I tried to do the same thing up here, and I had a little piece up here start to split. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use an X-Acto knife, and I'm going to try to get the edge started here a little bit, and just gently shave away enough wood stock to where I can use the chisel to get it down to where I need to be. Of course, after I fit it with the brass again, just taking a little at a time. So what I'm going to do is use my X-Acto knife to trim away, whittle if you will. It's deviating from the process, but I think considering how easily this wood split, and you can kind of see where it split, and hopefully I can feather that in and blend it really well before I treat the wood for the stock. I think this is the best course of action to take because I can control it a little bit better than the wood chisel, and I would just hate to rip a big chunk of stock trying to gently use the chisel, which obviously didn't work because I really wasn't putting much pressure on it, and it just chunked right off. So we're going to try this method and see what happens. Alright, so this appears to have worked pretty well. I used the X-Acto knife to just carefully trim away the edge here. As you can see, I managed to do it without making any really ugly gouges, and I think now that I've got a edge established here, I can safely use the chisel to clean up and get this to depth. I'm going to flip the stock and do the other side here and see how it goes. I'm probably going to go ahead and use the same procedure up here, since this appears to be a delicate piece and has tried to split on me. I managed to pull the chisel back just in time, but it did crack, and I put a little glue down in there and clamped it down as well. So that's what I'm going to do until I can get a nice border established like I did up here, and I can safely use the chisel. It's going to be a little more time consuming, but the job will be done right. So My X-Acto knife plan worked pretty well. Was able to trim this down to where it needed to be and clean it up with the chisel. We'll take the butt plate and fit it on, and hopefully you can see this. It looks to be mating up somewhat well. It's going to need some play in, so I'll have to put some more inletting on and see where we need to file or trim with the chisel and make some adjustments. But all in all, it doesn't look too bad. Might have to do a little work on the edge here to get it to feed into there a little bit better, but we're getting there. So that's where we're standing right now. Okay, you can see we got a few high spots here, there, maybe a little bit there, so we'll work on getting those trimmed out. Okay, as you can see, we're still getting a little bit of high spots over here, so we're going to clean that up a little bit. But the back looks pretty good. Might have to touch up the corners here a bit, and maybe a little bit up here on the comb. Inletting, last piece of inletting, we're going to set our brass bar on there. I've measured out how far back we need to go. I'm actually I left myself about 1/8 of an inch there to play with, so just in case I didn't want to take off too much, I figured better to cut it a little short and then gradually wedge it back in. So that's where I'm at right now, and we'll be back. Okay, so we've inletted our brass, got it lined up here pretty good. We take our butt plate, put it on. A little bit of brass work we'll need to do to take the file and bevel that a little bit so it mates up good against our butt plate. So the toe plate is now placed, and I guess we're ready for next week.